There we go. You should hear me now. So sorry about that. We're just organising some housekeeping issues, heading into the lobby here. So we'll go to the live scene. So hello and welcome. My name is Metamon and welcome to round one of the Bush League Racing's Group C Sauber C9 Mercedes-Benz series. We find ourselves at Mugello tonight here for their series. So we'll go through the next slide. This is our round one event details here. So as I mentioned before, track we're racing at tonight, Mugello. It's one of the DLC tracks on Project Cars 2. For what we've got coming up, qualifying 15-minute session. The weather conditions will be heavy clouds, so obviously the softer tyre will be a better option there. And then the race, we got a 30-lap race with no mandatory pit stop. I'm pretty sure they won't be able to make it to the end on fuel. So we will see guys coming to the pit stop to get their respective load of fuel on board. And there are your weather slots for the race. We've got heavy cloud followed by clear conditions. And then there'll be a random weather slot in the last weather slot there. And that's all synced to race. So we're not going to know what that's going to be until that time comes in the last third of the race here. Round one of Bush League Racing's Group C Sauber C9 Mercedes-Benz series. So here's the track we're racing at tonight. Mugello, distance 5.245 kilometres, 14 corners. A very fast flowing circuit, very comparable to the Australian circuit of Phillip Island. Very high average speed, and a lot of high speed corners here at Mugello. And there's a very high elevation change through the mid stage of the track as well. So you've got a variation in different braking zones. No doubt it's going to be quite a challenge for the drivers to contend at this track tonight. So as of now, we're going to give you an onboard view with John Dog giving us a track guide for tonight's round here for Bush League Racing's round one of Group C Mercedes-Benz Sauber C9 series. I hope you enjoy this video here.
Group C1 touring cars. I'm driving a Sauber C9, which is a Mercedes-Benz built vehicle. This thing's a beast. It's got a top speed of about 420 kilometers an hour. It is an absolutely wicked machine. So sit back and I'll take you for a spin and you'll see what I'm talking about. Sound in it is phenomenal. We're running a H-pattern gearbox. A lot of the cars nowadays have got the sequential, but this is a bit of an old beast. Circuit's an absolute ripper. It's nice and flowing. Let's take it a bit easy on the outlap. It's going to be a bit cold. Track's about 5.4 kilometres, I think. Nice elevations, big flowing corners, wicked dangerous curves. Will either work for you or throw you. You've got a headset on, turn it up, because this thing sounds amazing. In fact, I think I'll take this for a standing start. And as you can see, if you push it too hard, you end up in sand. Well, that's all part of the fun. And there we have a standing lap of Mugello in the beautiful Sauber. I hope to see you tonight, and hope you enjoy the race.
So I hope you enjoyed that onboard track in-depth scene on board with our one and only John Dog. He's the host of this league. No doubt he's put quite a good performance there with that track guide. Very difficult circuit in regards to the combination of the car as well. But to keep in mind, it's a V8 twin turbo engine in these cars. There's going to be a lot of turbo lag in these things, so they're going to be very difficult to get across off the line tonight from a standing start. So we'll go on board with Waffles. He's currently provisional pole here with 146.9. That will be an out lap right there from him. So he'll be on his first flying lap here. He's currently set up in the mid-sector here at Mugello. Very fast-flowing circuit. That's your elevation change through the mid-sector there as we go higher and then back into the downhill braking zone type stuff. So it shows you how difficult and how technical this circuit really is. But it's going to invite a lot of awesome racing tonight, no doubt. Provisionally, he's looking to get a 133 here with that sector split comparison now to sector 2. So what's this going to be for Waffles in the last sector? Is assuming he keeps on track here, he would be able to challenge for outright pole position here. And I think he was the fastest in practice, so we know he's got the 1 lap pace. Let's see if it's going to transition to the qualifying session here for round 1 for Bush League Racing's Group C, Sauber C9 Mercedes-Benz series. It's a single make series, so it's going to be very close. So 131.8, it's the fastest lap we've seen all night. Andy Holden up in the P2. He's got a 135.9. We've got Sparky Guide in P3 having a little bit of trouble there with a 137 flat. 138.9 from the reigning champ Wimpinator in this series at Bush League Racing. We'll go further down. We've got Short Fuse in P5 there. 149.6 is his quickest. And then the guys below him, Angry Old Fella goes up in the P4 after getting his first hot lap done and dusted there. A 137.7 is his quickest. Go further down, we've got Aussie Chopper there. We've got Hooked XR8, we've got Voodoo, we've got John Dog who's hosting this series. He's currently on a hot lap now, so we'll set him up on board cockpit view here. He's currently set up out of the last corner now. It's a double apex, very technical corner heading onto the main straight here at Mugello. I hope I'm pronouncing the track name right. Here we go, across the line for John Dog. It's not going to be a lap to compare there, so it's obviously an out lap. So we'll go on board with someone else. We'll go on board with Angry Old Fella. He's in the mid-sector now. On the other side of the track, through the last sector we go in a few moments' time. Tyre temps are going to be very crucial tonight as well, because the tyres, the left-hand front tyre specifically heats up quite a lot here at Mugello, so there's going to have to be a lot of nursing these tyres around these fast speed corners here at Mugello if they're to maintain their tyre wear situation. I'm pretty sure the tyre wear is set to accelerated, so it just adds a bit more of a complexity to deal with in this series. So Angry Old Fella at the last corner now. In a few moments time we're going to see if he's going to improve or not. He's currently starting on the second row provisionally in 4th position there. So coming across the line now, he's trying to maximise his exit, and he goes provisional P2, a 131.3. That's 3 temps separated the top 2 there. That's an awesome lap from Angry Old Fella to put himself in the mix here for round 1. Andy Holden in P3 still with a 135.9. We'll stay on board with him for the moment here. He's went out a little bit wide. We need to get that map back up so we know what sector he's in. So he's still in the 1st sector. A little bit of extra oversteer out of the last corner there. He's got a car behind, so I reckon this lap isn't going to be fast enough to improve that. So we'll go on board with the reigning champ. I reckon he's about to go on for a hot lap here. So here we go, out of the last corner now. You're going to try and slingshot yourself around that last corner to be able to reach your top end speed at an earlier time down this main straight here at Mugello. So that was definitely an outlap there from our reigning champ, Wimpinator. So we'll go on board cockpit view to see what he's got in store for us this time around. We know he's got very good one-lap pace outright in pretty much every series he's in. Waffles, it goes even quicker with a 129.9 there. So he's got 1.5 seconds in hand over Angry Old Fella in P2. So is anyone going to be able to challenge that provisional pole time set by Waffles? We'll wait and see as we stick ourselves on board with the reigning champ here. He's 1.5 attempts up on his fastest lap here, which is currently a 1:38.9. It's currently 8.9 seconds off provisional pole here. So he's going to have a blitzing mid-sector here at Mugello if he's to challenge his closest competitor, Waffles, for provisional pole here. It's an all-out attack lap here from our reigning champ, 4.9 seconds out of the mid-sector there, so he's really tracking for a front row start here for round one of Bush League Racing's Group C, Sauber C9, Mercedes-Benz series here, single make series. He seems to have backed out of it, so he's not happy with that previous lap. We'll go trackside view on board with Hooked XR8. He's currently sitting P3, so he's moved up a few positions just a few moments ago with a 1:34.5. So it's a good lap from him to put himself in P3. So I'm just curious here. They're not all driving the same car. I'm not sure what's going on here. So obviously a Group C series. I've just misread something here. So deepest apologies for the misleading information there. So we start on board with Hooked XR8. He's in the mid-sector now. Get a sector split out of the mid-sector in a few moments' time. And Saucy Chopper spamming the race speed with invalidating his lap time due to exceeding track limits there. So sector split is looking good for him. Hooked XR8 up by 1.4 seconds up on his quickest. But at this stage, it's not able to put him up into P2 at least, so he's going to have to go even faster through the last sector here. So out the last corner now. He's going to have to use it as a slingshot. Double apex corner, very technical last corner to get yourself onto the main straight here. A lot of turbo lag in the Group C cars. And it's going to be very difficult to get them off the line here. So across the line in a few moments' time. So Hooked XR8 doesn't go any faster there. He did invalidate his lap, but short fuse goes up into P3 with a 1:31.4. We've got less than 10 minutes in this qualifying session to set the race for round one here for Bush League Racing's Group C series here. So set up in the mid-sector on board with short fuse now. He's got a car up ahead, and it seems as though he's backed out of his lap there. Slowed right down through midway through that straight. So we'll go on board with Andy Holden, cockpit view. So we're about to get the sector split out of the mid-sector here for Andy. And it's looking quite well, only slightly up on his quickest time, but he's got one more sector to contend with here if he's to improve in the standings. He's currently 1 second off his closest competitor in P4 in Hooked XR8. So it's going to be all-out attack in this last sector. See if he can get the time necessary to put him up in the standings. So that's Waffles parking it up for the moment here. So provisional pole set by Waffles, a 1:29.9. He's got 1.5 seconds in hand over Angry Old Fella in P2. That's an improvement there for Andy, but not transitioning onto the leaderboards though. So he's going to have to find a lot more time through the first and mid sector. Unfortunately for him, we'll go on forward with Voodoo, see how he's tracking. He's currently in P7 with a 1:37.7. So we're going to get an indication of where he's tracking in a few moments' time out of the first sector. He's currently slightly down on his fastest lap. He's going to have to put it all on the line here as he completely loses the rear end on entry to the mid-sector. And he's in the sand trap there. And his hot lap is done and dusted, unfortunately. So that's Aussie Chopper trailing behind Voodoo there. So we'll stay on board with Aussie Chopper here for the moment. Once we get the indication of what time he's going to be tracking for out the mid-sector. And he's parked it up as well. So John Dog across control line now. It's going to be an outlap from him. Reigning champ. He's caught up in the wars tonight so far. All the way down in P10. So we'll see what he's got in response to this performance so far. So we're going to get the mid-sector split in a few moments' time. A couple corners to contend here. Very fast pace here through this mid-sector. That left-hand front is going to be killing in the race, no doubt. So he's 2.5 tenths off his quickest time here. So he's really struggling, Wimpinator, in this qualifying session. We'll see how Sparky God's tracking through the mid-sector. We'll get that sector split up on screen relatively soon. We're currently sitting P6 with 137 flat here at Mugello for Sparky God. So what's this going to be for him out of the mid-sector? It's going to be an outlap for him. So Andy is currently going to get a sector split out of the first sector here. Down the back straight we go. I think he's backed out of it. So we'll go on board with Short Fuse. About to cross the control line now. About to get an indication whether he improves or not. So 10 seconds off his fastest lap. And Wimpinator, out of nowhere, puts himself in the P2 at 130 flat there. He's only 1.5 tenths off provisional pole set by Waffles. And he's completely binned it on his second go around there. He's just going to have to park it up and get back out on track as quick as possible. But for now, we're going to go on board with Short Fuse. He's going to take you around for a lap here at Mugello. So I'll shut up for the time being. So turn up the volume. It's going to be a ripper of a lap here as you see he's up in the first sector. That was a very good lap from Short Fuse to put himself up into P3. A 131.1 is his quickest now. So he's pipped Angry Old Fella at P3, who's been just relegated back to P4 there. So those guys separated by 2 tenths from 3rd and 4th. And we've got the 2 leaders in Waffles and Wimpinator separated by 1.5 tenths there. So these 2 guys behind them, Short Fuse and Angry Old Fella, they got a lot of work to do in the latest session here for qualifying. We've got less than 5 minutes to play here. Hooked XR8 is parked up, currently exiting pit lane now, as well as Short Fuse, who were on board with a few moments ago. So we see how Sparky God is tracking once again. So he's set up in the first sector here. We're about to get a sector split up on screen. He's got a car up ahead. I'm not sure who that is. That might be a little bit of a draft benefit down the main straights here for Sparky God, assuming the car ahead isn't slow through the corners here. So 2.5 tenths up on his quickest time here, which is currently a 134.8 for Sparky God. And someone just moved up in the standings. I think that was Andy Holden with a 134.2. So he's looking quite fine through this later stage in qualifying here. So 1.2 seconds up. Sparky God, he's parked it up here. I'm not sure why, because he was up by 1.2 seconds. We'll quickly hop on board with Hooked XR8. I think, did he come out of the pits a few moments ago? He may have. So we'll see how Voodoo's tracking. So he's coming out of the first couple of corners now. Set up in the mid-sector as we go down the back straight here. He's got it all out sideways on exit of turn 3 there. So he's really struggling with the rear stability here. So what's this going to be for a sector split? 1.5 temps up on his quickest here. So it's looking quite fine through this first sector. But he's lost a lot of time as he's into the inside wall. He's completely rotated it there. A little bit too hungry on the inside curve there. Aussie Chopper currently on an outlap. I'm not sure what John Dog's up to. We're about to get a sector split through the mid-sector here. So we'll see if he's on a hot lap or not. So we're about to get that up in a few moments. So he must be on an outlap because we didn't get a sector split for John Dog. So we'll go on board with Short Fuse. He's at turn 1 now. Very technical turn 1, very deep under brakes. Double apex corner. As you put yourself a sequence of left and right hand corners here through the mid sector on entry to the second sector. You got a little bit of extra oversteer out of turn 3. It's not an unusual view to see here at Mugello as the drivers are all out attack in this qualifying session. All on the line here. Short Fuse, two 100ths down on his current fastest time here in qualifying. So he's on track to be able to improve here. So we'll wait and see in the later stage of this lap if he's able to get the time necessary through this mid-sector. So it's going to have to be an all-out attack as we got less than 2 minutes to play here. Realistically, he's got this lap and the next lap to be able to put in a fast lap. It seems as though he's dropped out of it here. 7.5 tenths of a second down on his quickest. So I reckon he's backed out of it through that lap. So he's going to have to come around for another time around to be able to put in another decent lap here. But we're on board with the reigning champ. He's currently up on his quickest lap by 8/100ths of a second. At this stage, it's looking to challenge Waffles for provisional pole here. He's currently set up in the mid-sector in the elevation change. Very technical mid-sector here as we go through a sequence of right-handers and left-hand corners here. So we're about to get a sector split out of the mid-sector for Wimpinator, and he's 1.5 temps up here, currently on board the track for provisional pole. So through the mid-sector now, all he's got to do is keep it on the grey stuff without exceeding track limits through this last sector here. It's very easy to do so. And so far, so good for the reigning champ, Wimpinator, as he comes out the last corner now. It's looking clean out the last corner. He's going to get a decent launch out of there too. So down the main straight we go. We're going to get that reference in a few moments' time. Does he get provisional pole? He does. He goes 7 tenths of a second quicker. And he's tipped Waffles by half a second here at Mugello for Bush League Racing's Group C series here. This is round 1 at Mugello. I hope you're enjoying the first installment so far on the streaming services of YouTube and Facebook. So we're on board with Short Fuse. He's currently set up in the last sector now. He's got a car up ahead to contend with, so a bit of traffic to deal with in the process. So we'll wait and see what he's got for us. Out of the last corner we go. So that's qualifying complete. So all the guys set up on their last laps now. That's going to be their last opportunity to improve on the standings here for round 1 of Bush League Racing's Group C series. So across the line now for Short Fuse. Is there going to be any movement in the standings? No, there's not. So Short Fuse not able to improve. We'll go on board with Andy Holden. He's coming out the last corner now. He's the next one on track to improve here. Currently sitting P5 with a 132 flat. He's improved, but not on the leaderboard, so not quick enough to go up into at least P4 there. So we'll go on board with Sparky God. We might go further forward on board with Voodoo. He's set up in the last sector now. He's going to be the next driver to cross control line here to close qualifying up for round 1. So this will set the grid for the race that's about to come. It's going to be a 30-lap race with no mandatory pit stop, but I'm pretty sure the fuel load isn't able to make it to the very end of this one. So the guys are going to have to tour pit lane for a little bit of fuel. But Voodoo across control line now. What's this going to be for him? It's not going to be an improvement there, so we'll quickly hop on board with Sparky God. Across control line now, and I think he's improved up into the top 5. He quickly flicks over, so Sparky God goes in the P6 with that late charge in qualifying there. But it's going to be the reigning champ where he left off last season. starting on pole position. His closest competitor last season in Waffles, starting alongside him on the front row. We'll go further down. We've got Angry Old Fella, Short Fuse, Andy Holden rounding out the top 5. So here we go. A standing start here. It's going to be very difficult to get these Group C cars off the line. We're going to have a lot of rear wheel torque here from standing start to pretty much top end speed down to the very end of the straight here at Mugello. So it's going to be all about how these guys can get them off the line here. And for Wimpinator, he's not on the clean side of the track, so it's going to be very difficult for him to get it off the line here and to be able to challenge the lead into turn 1. So Waffles has got the clean line on the outside starting P2. Very good qualifying performance from him. Short Fuse will start this race in P3 on row 2. Angry Old Fella, very good qualifying performance as well. We'll start on row 2 in 4th position. Andy Holden starting in P5. We've got Hooked XR8 in P6. That's your 3rd row here for round 1 here. Then we've got Sparky God in P7. John Dog in P8. And on the last row, 5th row, we've got Voodoo and Aussie. So that is your 10-car grid here for round 1 of Bush League Racing's Group C series. So here we go. We'll go to the front where we're about to await Greenlight Racing here at Mugello. So don't go anywhere. This is going to be a ripping 30-lap race to the end. And what's the go here in the race feed? Mechanical fault for John Dog. I'm not sure if that happened in the previous session in qualifying. By the looks of it, it did. We'll wait and see what happens as we come off a standing start here. So the guys loading in their setups. And so there's going to be a lot of turbo lag with these cars as well. They're all twin turbos, V8s. So they're very difficult set of machines to drive here. So I commend the drivers for their efforts in qualifying to put on quite a fine show so far. But for now, it's going to be Wimpinator leading everyone into turn 1, assuming he can get it off the line with reasonable traction. So here we go. The lights are about to go out here for round 1 of Bush League Racing's Group C series. And we go green here at Mugello. So it seems as though bogged down. Wimpinator, the reigning champ. Short Fuse with a ripper of a launch from the 2nd row. Moves up in the P1 before the first turn here. It's going to be closely followed by Waffles. Andy Holden up a few positions here. We've got side-by-side contact. Andy Holden is rotated at turn 1. Everyone trying to make evasive manoeuvres here. It's completely rotated, and it seems as though Aussie Chopper got bogged off the line as well. He's going to have to catch up here. So Wimpinator off the line from pole position. He's all the way back in P2. So that leader, Short Fuse, has extended out to 2.2 tenths of a second. 2.2 seconds there, rather. We've got Wimpinator holding off Waffles in P3. Waffles got an overlap down the inside, but he's going to have to hold on right behind the rear bumper of our reigning champ here at Mugello. These guys are bumper to bumper throughout the entirety of this opening lap. It's going to be all to play for on this lap here. As Waffles tries to make a move down the inside. We've got side-by-side contact between our 2 top contenders here. Waffles have been pushed out wide from our reigning champ there. We've got Sparky God into the sand trap there in the mid-sector. It's all looking very unusual here on the opening lap. So these guys just looking to get into the right mindset of racing once again here on the Monday night. Voodoo's up in the P5. We've got Angry Old Fella in P4 here. He's got a decent gap in front of him and behind him. So a lot of clean air for him to be able to punch in a few fast laps here. So it's going to be Wimpinator in P2. Short Fuse with a 4.8 second lead over the reigning champ Wimpinator on the opening lap. That's a tremendous effort from Short Fuse from the 2nd row of the grid up into P1 with almost a 5-second lead. Starting lap 2 here at Mugello. The reigning champ holding on to P2 here. We've got Waffles in the background, a further 8 tenths of a second behind him. Go further back, we've got Angry Old Fella in P4. And we got Hooked XR8 in P5. Andy Holden in P6. We've got John Dog in P7. Then Aussie Chopper in P8. We've got Voodoo and Sparky God. Both touring pit lane to obviously repair their damage they accumulated on the opening lap there. Devastating scenes for those 2 guys. They had very good qualifying performances, starting in the top 6 there. So they'll be really kicking themselves after that opening lap. So we're currently on board with Short Fuse. He's up 5 seconds on his fastest race lap, which is a 1:38.8. So he's tracking well at the front of the field here. He's really blazing away in P1 because currently Waffles has moved up in the P2 now on the reigning champ, who's been relegated back to P3, and that gap has extended almost pretty much straight away there. We're currently in the last sector here on the second lap. It's going to be an all-out battle between these two championship contenders here in Waffles and Wimpinator. As for Wimpinator, he's just going to get himself back into the groove after losing out, starting on pole position at the start of this race. So he's just going to have to get back into that groove that we saw him with in the last series, winning the championship. We've got Angry Old Fella tracking well on P4. His closest contender behind is Hooked XR8, a further 4 seconds behind him. Andy Holden tracking well in P6. We've got John Dog in P7, and then Aussie Chopper in P8. The two guys that pitted in, Voodoo and Sparky God. So Sparky God, unfortunately, is a lap down on the leaders here. So he's not going to have a good start here at Mugello for round 1 of Bush League Racing's Group C series here. So for the moment here, it's Short Fuse leading this one by 6 seconds over Waffles in P2. That's for Waffles. He's got a decent gap. Where's Wimpinator gone in all this? He's been relegated back to P7. So he's made a mistake through to mid-sector here. The first sector is very devastating scenes for a reigning champ. He's 29 seconds from the lead of this one now. There's going to be a lot of work to do in the closing 27 laps of this one. So he's just going to have to put his eyes forward and make up as much ground as possible on the guys ahead of him. So Short Fuse, very favourable situation for him with 6.2 seconds in hand over Waffles in P2. For the moment here, Short Fuse will take you around here at Mugello for a lap here. So turn the volume up. He's going to tear this place apart here. Hope you enjoyed that onboard lap with our race leader, Short Fuse. That was 0.8 of a second off his fastest race lap. So that lap was a 1:33.8. That's very good race pace in this early stage here at Mugello. And that's Waffles in the background, a further 7 seconds down on the race leader. His last lap almost equaled the race leader in Short Fuse. Slightly quicker by 3/100. So he's starting to track a little bit faster here. We've got Angry Old Fella with a 1:35.6 last lap, currently sitting in P3 on track. And right behind him is Hooked XR8 in P4. He's lost a little bit of time in comparison to Angry Old Fella ahead of him. We've got Andy Holden up in the P5, and then John Dog in P6 now. And the reigning champ, Wimpinator, has made a few early mistakes here at Mugello, and that set him back all the way back to P7. His last lap not looking good here at 1:48.3. He's just going to track well for the later stage of this one. He's just going to try gain as much ground as possible. He's got Aussie Chopper for company in behind him. He's only 3 seconds off our reigning champ here, Wimpinator. So we'll go further forward. Let's see if he's got any battles starting to heat up. The battle between Angry Old Fella and Hooked XR8, no doubt, is going to be a battle to watch. as this battle starts to heat up through this mid-stage here. You see Hooked XR8 and then Andy Holden in the background there. So we're going to have a 3-car battle for P3 here in a few laps' time by the looks of it. So I reckon the guys behind Angry Old Fella are tracking a little bit quicker than him in this stage of the race. So keep an eye on what's going to happen, what's going to unfold in the next few laps or so. So we'll stay on board here, trackside view with Angry Old Fella. Your race leader currently is Short Fuse by 5.6 seconds over Waffles in P2. So last lap, Short Fuse a 1:34.4 plays a 1:33.6 in Waffles in P2. So he gained a lot of ground on the last lap alone. Waffles currently sitting P2. Angry Old Fella last lap a 1:36.1 plays a 1:36.8 with Hooked XR8 in P4. So maybe Angry Old Fella's got the upper hand here. It's quite good for him because Hooked XR8 is about to have company from Andy Holden relatively soon, I reckon. It's further 6 seconds down the road. So we've got a lap car there. I think that's the lap car of Sparky God amongst the top contenders here at Mugello. So currently Sparky. So we'll go further forward. We'll just go through a run through of the standings so far. So on lap 6, Short Fuse is your current leader by 5.4 seconds over Waffles in P2. So he's starting to track a little bit of time. He's going to chip into that deficit in a few laps' time. He should be there or thereabouts in the later stage of this one. We've got Angry Old Fella in P3. He's putting up consistent race pace so far. So good performance from him. It's a fast far as well. Hooked XR8 currently sitting P4. He's got good race pace earlier on as well. We don't want to heat up these tyres too much though, so there's going to be a lot of nursing these tyres through the mid-stage of the race just to get them home without having to come in for another set. We've got Andy Holden rounding out the top 5 here at Mugello. We go further down, we've got John Dog in P6, the reigning champion Wimpinator P7. He's about the dog ahead in comparison to Wimpinator on the last couple of laps here. So he's not tracking well through this early stage. Then we've got Voodoo struggling to stay on the lead lap here. Got to keep in mind, he did come in for a pit stop on the opening lap to repair a little bit of damage accumulated on that opening lap with a lot of turn 1 contact. Because I think who actually rotated? I think it was Andy Holden that got rotated at turn 1. And then Sparky God a lap down because he also came in for a pit stop to repair some damage on the opening lap. So we currently stay on board with John Dog. He's got Wimpinator in the background lurking. He's going to be able to make an attack on the rear bumper of John Dog relatively soon. He's got a lot of pace all the way back in P7. He's your pole sitter in this race. He's all the way down in P7 through this early stage on lap 7. See him in the background catching up under brakes by a lot. So John Dog, he's going to be feeling the pressure now. As he can see, Wimpinator in the rear view mirror. So it's going to be an all-out battle for Wimpinator. We'll go on full cockpit view because he's about to make an attack on John Dog in the next lap. As you can see, just going to get a comparison of the braking zones here between the two. It seems as though Wimpinator is very confident on the brakes here. A little bit of extra oversteer through the mid-corner there. So he's lost a little bit of time through the mid-corner. He's still tracking well to make an attack on the next lap here at Mugello. So double apex corner, this last corner, you want to try slingshot yourself around to get an absolute ripper of a launch to be able to reach your top end speed a lot quicker than the guys around you. And as for Wimpinator, he has done so. He's got a little bit of extra top end speed here in comparison with John Dog down the main straight. So he's going to gain a lot of ground under brakes for turn 1 double apex corner. It's very hard to get on the throttle in these Group C cars. They're V8 twin turbos. You can imagine the turbo lag going through the rear tyres. A lot of rear torque goes through those rear tyres. So it's going to be very easy to chew up those rears as well. So they've got to be very mindful of keeping their rears intact so they can stay planted to the track for the entirety of this race. So we're staying on board with Wimpinator here. On board cockpit view, that's a massive dive through the mid-sector there. You have to make a little bit of evasive action through the mid-corner under brakes. Almost hit the rear end and also almost collected John Dog there. Very good reaction time from our reigning champ. He's right on the rear bumper lurking now. He's starting to become a pest for John Dog through the mid-stage of this one. We're currently on lap 8 of 30. These guys are battling it out for P6 here in the early stages. Currently, Wimpinator is down by 3.9 seconds on his quickest race lap. And he follows right in behind John Dog in this previous lap. So we'll actually go on board with John Dog, get trackside view up just to see how it all unfolds in the background. Is there going to be a dive from the reigning champ out of the last corner here? Can he get in through the mid-corner with better traction? He's going to be in the slipstream down the main straight, so there might be a move made heading into turn 1 between these two. Look for that to happen. So across the control line now for these two guys. We're waiting it out. There's going to be a dive down the inside from the reigning champ. Is he going to be able to pull it off here? John Dog stuck on the outside. He's just going to give position to the reigning champ, Wimpinator there. So wonderful move there for Wimpinator to get himself up into P6. And he's going to track hard. He's going to make as much ground forward as possible in the next few laps or so. Because his next target is Andy Holden in P5. He's actually a further 19 seconds ahead of him in front. We've got Hooked XR8 still in P4. Angry Old Fella. Good performance so far, sitting in P3. Waffles has lost a little bit of time on the previous 2 laps or so, because now that gap for the lead is just under 6 seconds now. So he's actually gained a lot of ground on the brakes at turn 1. So it seems as though he's actually gaining a lot this time around, because Short Fuse may have made a mistake. See the lap car there of Sparky God, I think it is. Quickly have a look. So it's the lap car of Voodoo. So we've got 2 cars a lap down. And Aussie Chopper struggling to stay on the lead lap here. He's got the race leader and Short Fuse a couple corners behind him. So he's just going to keep it on track here. He might be given the blue flags in a few laps or so. So we'll see how Short Fuse is tracking with the stability of his car through this stage of the race. We're currently a third of the way in it. And currently these tyres may be hurting just a little bit for these guys, and Short Fuse has rotated it. Race leader has completely binned it, and that's going to invite Waffles up in the P1. He's struggling to keep it on the track there, Short Fuse. So that's a massive story here on lap 10 here for round 1 of the Bush League Racing's Group C series. That's race-defining stuff there for Short Fuse. Those rears will be completely heated up to the point that you're not going to be able to drive fast here now. He's just going to have to cool those rear tyres down. Otherwise, he's going to have to come in for another set of tyres. Wait and see what happens, because now, all of a sudden, we've got a new race leader in Waffles. He's got an 8-second lead over Short Fuse, who had the lead of this race a few moments ago and completely binned it in the mid-sector on lap 10 here at Mugello. Disastrous scenes as we see another car off in the background now. I think it's the lap car of Voodoo or Aussie. So those guys really struggling at the back. We've got Angry Old Fella currently sitting P3. So he's 25 seconds off the lead of this one, which is currently occupied by Waffles out of nowhere. We've got Hooked XR8 in P4. Behind him, Andy Holden coming out of the last corner now. Those guys separated by 5 seconds between one another. We've got Wimpinator, the reigning champion, coming out the last corner now. So he's still got a little bit of time to gain on Andy Holden, which is about 16 seconds between those two guys from P5 to P6. We've got John Dog in P7 after lap 10 here at Mugello. We go further down, we've got Aussie Chopper, we've got Voodoo, and then we've got Sparky God. It's rounding out your 10-car grid here through the first third of this race here at Mugello. So we'll quickly go to the front of this one, where we stay on board with Angry Old Fella. He's currently got a 4-second gap in front of his closest competitor behind him, P4, Hooked XR8. So Angry Old Fella really tracking well so far. So we're about to get a sec. He's completely binned it as well. He's done the same thing as our previous race leader, Short Fuse, and he's stuck in the sand trap there. He's had to let Hooked XR8 right past there. Otherwise it would have been a dangerous re-entry. So those guys really struggling with the wrist stability at this stage of this race. So it looks like the tyres are really hurting now. And we might see a few strategy plays here as a few guys may opt to come into pit lane for another set of tyres. We'll wait and see how it all unfolds as we enter the mid-stage of this one here at Mugello. So Short Fuse is coming into pit lane. We're going to see what he's actually coming in for. He's actually just exited his pit box now, so he's been there for a while. So Short Fuse has been relegated back to P3. So Hooked XR8 moves up into P2 now. We'll go further down. Angry Old Fella, he's going to get the better of Short Fuse around the outside, heading to turn 1. He gets the move done with relative ease as he had the top end speed as Short Fuse was just coming out of the pits there from his pit stop. So Angry Old Fella, an all-out attack here as he made a mistake a few moments ago. So we're looking to get back into the right headspace here at Mugello. We're currently on lap 12 on board with Angry Old Fella. He's got Short Fuse lurking in the background, who was our race leader a couple of laps ago. So this is going to be a very bitter battle between these two. So both have made a mistake on the last few laps. So it's going to be a battle of adversity here between these two here. So we'll wait and see how this battle unfolds as Angry Old Fella has the better of Short Fuse so far. So I'm just going to get my jacket off. There we go. So your current race leader is Waffles in P1. He's currently already on lap 13 here. He's got a very hefty lead at the top, 36.1 seconds in hand over Hooked XR8 in P2. That's a commanding lead from Waffles through the mid-stage of this one. So he could risk a pit stop here and get himself on a better set of tyres if he opts to do so. He's got that leeway in terms of the gap between himself and Hooked XR8 in P2. So look for a strategy play there from him to get himself on a better set of tyres. As Short Fuse comes in the pit lane once again. And it seems as though his car's floating a little bit. Visually, I'm not sure what's going on there. So is he coming in for a set of tyres? No, he's not. Maybe a little bit of fuel. Wait and see. Maybe for repairs there, so I'm not sure what he's actually done. So Hooked XR8, he's tracking quite well in P2. He's got a 7-second gap over Angry Old Fella in P3, so he'll be quite happy with his performance so far. As well as Angry Old Fella. We've got Andy Holden in P4, so he's made a couple of positions off the starting grid as well. We've got Wimpinator, he was sitting on pole position at the start of this one, but he's all the way back in P5 now after a few mistakes in the early stages of this one, but he looks to be on the right mind frame now because he's really putting up some very fast lap times here around Mugello through the mid stage of this one. Very consistent race pace from him. We've got John Dog in P6. He's in the first sector on lap 13. He's went a little bit wide through the first fast chicane there, the second fast chicane correction. And he's lost a lot of time through that first sector as well, 1.3 seconds to be precise. We've got Short Fuse suddenly all the way back in P7 now, so he's really struggling through this mid-stage of this race. He's just going to look to track forward from now in between the last lap here at Mugello. And that's Aussie Chopper really struggling as well as he took a detour into the outside wall there through the first sector. We've got Voodoo in the background, he's rotated it, he's put himself on the grass, and he's lost his rear wing. Very unfortunate scenes for these guys. So Spark of God is going to get the better of Voodoo there due to that mistake. That means it's going to be a battle for P8 between Aussie, Chopper and Voodoo here on lap 13. So look for that battle to start heating up in the later stages. But for now, Waffles with a commanding lead of 37.2 seconds over Hooked XR8 in P2. We've got Angry Old Fella in P3. That actually current podium positions at this stage. We've got Andy Holden in P4 holding off the reigning champ in P5. He's only a few 100 metres behind him here. So he's going to be challenging for P4 in the next lap or so. So this is going to be a battle to watch as well. Currently on lap 14 of 30 with these two guys here. So Andy Holden, his last lap was a 1:38.4 in comparison to a 1:35.4, which was set by Wimpinator in P5. So he looks to be in the danger zone here, Andy Holden. At least he's got track position here to hold off our reigning champ Wimpinator at Bush League Racing. It's going to be quite a task to be able to maintain position here over Wimpinator in P5. We've got lap traffic up ahead to deal with. Not sure who that is. Quickly, it's the lap traffic of Aussie Chopper in P8. So he's had quite a disastrous first stint here as he drifts off in the pit lane now. So he'll be looking the track for fastest lap here. So we'll go back onto the battle for P4 on board with Andy Holden. He's currently holding off our reigning champ in P5 here. Commanding lead in favour of Waffles at the top. It's almost extended out to 40 seconds on lap 15 of 30. So we're at the mid stage here at Mugello for round 1 of Bush League Racing's Group C Series. Andy Holden, he's got the better of Wimpinator so far. Wimpinator just coming into the background there, out of the first sector for these two guys. He's currently down Andy Holden on his fastest race lap by almost 4/10 of a second. His last lap was a 1:37 flat, plays a 1:36.2 with Wimpinator in P5. So we'll see how the final podium position is tracking here. So there's going to be a battle starting to heat up for P2 soon between Hooked XR8 and Angry Old Fella. He's about 5 seconds down from P2 of Hooked XR8, so those two are going to go battle relatively soon. So Andy Holden, he's still got the better of Wimpinator. You can see Wimpinator lurking in the background there as we enter the last corner on entry to lap 16 here at Mugello. Off in the background. I think that's either Voodoo or Sparky God. So Voodoo, he's lost his rear wing. He's still struggling to get it back to pit lane. So he's going to have a very long standstill here in the pits to repair that structural damage on his car. I'm not sure what's going on here with Sparky God because his tyres aren't making contact with the track. He's pretty much floating in mid-air. I haven't seen this before. What the hell's going on? I cannot explain the phenomenon that's going on there. I don't know, maybe he's got some sort of hacks. Maybe some sort of mod menu. I'm not sure what's the go there. And it's Waffles, your race leader. He's got the lead of this one by 45 seconds. We've got Hooked XR8 in P2. So Hooked XR8 is about to catch up to the rear end of Sparky God, who's floating in mid-air, as you can see. I've never seen that in my days of Project Cars 2. I've seen Project Cars 2 cars driving with no tyres in IndyCar, but I haven't seen a car floating in mid-air. Cracking laps around here at Mugello. So Angry Old Fella coming out the last corner now. The gap between Hooked XR8 and Angry Old Fella is 6 seconds on the previous lap. So those two guys still tracking well. Wimpinator still stuck behind Andy Holden in P5 there. So Andy Holden's got a 2-second advantage over Wimpinator in P5. So very deep under brakes heading into turn 1. I might actually go on board cockpit view to see how Andy Holden's tracking on the older set of tyres here. So I'll shut up and we might be able to get a sense of the tyre squeal here through the fast left and right handers. track well in P5 there. He's got the better of our reigning champ, Wimpinator, so far, who's a further 2 seconds down. And it seems as though we might have wet conditions here. Rain's pouring down on the track, so the guys are going to have to come in the pit lane to react to this situation now. Everyone's going to have to get onto a set of wet tyres. As you can see, the rain poured down here at Mugello. This is going to really catch a lot of the drivers out. As Waffles, he's going to be the first to react here, or does he? No, he doesn't. He opts to stay out for another time around. I'm not sure if that's fog or rain. By the looks of it, it is rain. Because it seems to be pouring down onto the track. So it's going to be a very risky strategy here if they're to stay out in these wet conditions. So Hooked XR8, he's currently still on the previous lap of Waffles. Wait and see how the strategy comes into effect here. So you can see those lap times starting to die off in these very difficult conditions. This was the random weather slot. We weren't able to predict these conditions. So the drivers are just going to have to do what's presented to them. Unfortunately, a few of them have opted to stay on slick tyres so far. So we'll wait and see if anyone is going to react to get on those wet tyres. We've got John Dog into pit lane. I think he's opted to take the wet tyres. So he's the first of the guys to react here. As we go on board with Hooked XR8. And he opts to stay out as well. As I'm not sure if that's rain or fog because I don't have the weather up on screen. I might actually go on board cockpit view to see if they got any droplets of water. So no, it must be fog. So the track is going to be very cold and very slippery here. You see a little bit of a shine on the track. It's going to be very difficult conditions to end this one. We're on lap 19 of 30 here for round 1 of Bush League Racing's Group C. Sauber C9 Mercedes-Benz series. Currently got Wimpinator in pit lane. I'm not sure if he's coming in for a set of wets, because the track is definitely wet, as you can see that shine now. So the guys are going to be coming in the pit lane, and Waffles is the first of our lead runners to respond here. He's going to be getting that set of wet weather tyres now. So those tyres are currently going on his car. So we see Hooked XR8 in the pits as well this lap, I think. And he's very unsettled on the track here. He's struggling to keep it on track. So he's going to have to come in for a set of slicks this time around because he is really struggling in these conditions on the slick tyre. And I think his tyres have really cooled off now for him to be able to maintain that grip. So he's just going to have to come in the pit lane. So the race leader and Waffles exiting pit lane now on his set of wet tyres. So he's the first to respond out of the front runners. We've got Hooked XR8 in P2, Angry Old Fella in P3. I thought he was battling it out with Andy Holden there, but Andy Holden is a couple of corners down the road from him behind him. We've got Short Fuse in P5, Wimpinator, the reigning champ, in P6. He's on a set of wet tyres as well. He was the second to respond out of those guys on the lead lap. John Dog currently in P7. He was officially the first to respond here. So we're on lap 20 of 30 here at Mugello. It's very challenging conditions here for the drivers as we see Hooked XR8 and Angry Old Fella in for a set of wet tyres. Very congested in pit lane. Luckily we've got ghosted cars there. Andy Holden also opting to come in for that set of wet tyres. Short Fuse will also follow in, but he's made contact with the outside wall there. He might have to come in for a little bit of a repair time there as well. Sparky God in the pits. He's currently a couple of laps down. I think he's about 3 laps down to be more precise. So he's really struggling in this opening round here. He's just going to have to track that points deficit back through the next few rounds or so. We've got John Dog in P7. He should be able to get past a few of these guys in the pits maybe. Maybe not because he's only in the mid-sector. I thought he was coming out of the last couple of corners. So very difficult conditions. We might actually have to go on board chase view. You see the water trail behind Waffles here. He's your current race leader. It's very deep on the brakes, so these lap times are going to be very much slower through this later stage here. Last lap for Waffles was a 151.5, but I'm pretty sure that was an out lap. So we'll stay on board this lap on board Chase View. See how it all unfolds from this perspective. On board with the race leader Waffles. So he's still hitting his inside apexes there, but keeping it wide through a few of these corners just to search for traction through the mid-corner. So very challenging conditions here, but he's got a very huge commanding lead at the top, almost a bit over 1 minute here at Mugello for round 1 of Bush League Racing's Group C Sauber C9 Mercedes-Benz series. So you can see a lot of water puddles on the exit curbs there, so you wouldn't want to go out there if you were to keep yourself on the track. So it's going to be very difficult for here on in for the last 9 laps of this one. So we're coming on the last couple of corners now on board with Waffles. He's substantially down on his fastest race lap, no doubt, because we are in wet conditions here for the third and final weather slot at Mugello. It was a random weather slot, so no one could have predicted this. It's just a matter of hoping for the best here, and unfortunately for the drivers, they got the worst of what was available for weather conditions. You see the rain pouring down here on the track of Mugello. That's Hooked XR8 having to give way to Wimpinator. So Wimpinator, our reigning champ, all the way back from P7. Just in the early stages of this one, he's tracked well to get himself up into P2 on lap 21. So he's going to come out with an unlikely podium provisionally here at Mugello. So he's still got 9 laps to be able to maintain that momentum in P2. We've got Waffles in P1 tracking quite well with blitzing pace. His last lap was a 1:43.2. We've got Hooked XR8 in P3, Short Fuse in P4 there. And Andy Holden round out the top 5. We've got Angry Old Fella in P6. John Dog in P7. We've got Sparky God in P8 there. And then Aussie Chopper in P9. And we've got a retirement from Voodoo, unfortunately. Pretty sure you still get points for coming in 10th position. Did attend round 1 here. So that's Aussie Chopper letting lap traffic by there. So very good sportsmanship to see him get out of the way. He's very situational aware there in very challenging conditions. So Sparky God tracking in P8 there, a couple of laps down on the leader of Waffles. See if we've actually got a battle starting to heat up, and it will do so between these two guys, P4 and P5. Andy Holden start to catch up to the rear bumper of Short Fuse and P4. This is going to be a battle to watch in the closing laps of this one. And that's Andy Holden going out wide, so he's completely misjudged his braking zone out of the last corner. Now he's going to be under pressure from Angry Old Fella behind. This suddenly a battle for P5 here between Andy Holden and Angry Old Fella. So Angry Old Fella will take you on board here for a lap around Mugello in these really challenging conditions here. Rain pouring down in the later stage of this one, so I'll shut up for the time being. very hard to get on the power in these difficult conditions here at Mugello. Visibility pretty much an all-time low when you go trackside view here. So probably not the best camera to go on board with. So it's probably the best go here with chase view. So we'll see how everyone's tracking. Andy Holden starting to catch up a little bit of ground on short fuse ahead of him. Through the mid corner there, he got a little bit caught up, struggling to get on the power. So these guys on lap 23. Our race leader Waffles on lap 24. He's got a very huge lead here. He's about to lap the entire field here at Mugello. He's almost lapped our reigning champ in Wimpinator as well in P2. He's currently 1 minute and 3 seconds behind the lead of this one. So very commanding victory for Waffles tonight. Surely he's going to come home in P1, even if he makes a mistake. He's going to come home with quite a comfortable victory with just under 6 laps to go here at Mugello. So currently we're on board with Andy Holden trying to track down short fuse in P4. You see the different variations in race lines here in the wet conditions. Everyone opting to go to go-kart lines around the double apex and slow corners. So as for Andy Holden, he's one of those guys changing the race line up. It's very good to see because he's really struggling for rear end grip. It's very hard to get on the throttle here, considering these cars of the Group C have twin turbos, so there's going to be a lot of turbo lag as well. So very difficult conditions for these cars. Further down, what's happening between Aussie Chopper and Sparky God? These two actually separated by quite a lot here. So now just over a minute, so those timings are stuffing up a little bit there. Saying provisionally they were actually close to one another. So we stay on board with Andy Holden. He goes out wide there through the mid-sector. It's very hard to get on the power as well. It's going to be really punishing these conditions. Race leader Waffles in P1 with just under a minute lead here at Mugello. Short fuse is tracking just a few hundred metres ahead of Andy Holden, the angry old fella in P6. He's a further 20 seconds down on Andy Holden, so not looking likely to move up any more positions for him. He's just going to have to bring the haul of points that is offered for position 6. As for short fuse, he can still lose out here to Andy Holden. Not going to be able to move any more positions forward because Hook XR8 is already on the exit of turn 1. We've got the race leader Waffles a lap ahead of short fuse here at Mugello. So we've got lap traffic here. Not sure who that is. It's either Sparky God or Aussie Chopper. We'll have a quick look. So that's Aussie Chopper having to take a detour in the sand trap at turn 1. Just to avoid the faster cars ahead of him. Wimpinator, his last lap was a 1:44.4, so he's 4 seconds faster than our race leader Waffles on the last lap. But too little too late here at Mugello for our reigning champ. He's just going to have to settle for second best here. Hooked XR8, he can still lose out if he makes a mistake. But he's got quite a comfortable margin over short fuse, who's a few corners away from him, almost a sector away. He's currently under pressure from Andy Holden behind him. So Waffles coming out of the last sector now. He's about to enter lap 27 of 30, so we've got a bit over 4 laps to go here at Mugello. Current race leader is Waffles and Bits, with just over a minute lead with Wimpinator, the reigning champ, in P2. So Hooked XR8 comes on lap 26 now, so he's a lap down on our race leader, almost. He's currently in the background, lurking. So you see the deficiencies with the race pace here in the wet conditions. It's about 14 seconds slower than our dry weather conditions here at Mugello. Even our race leader, Waffles and Bits, is really struggling here. Visibility, go on board cockpit view. There's barely any visibility ahead of him, so he's just going to have to guess his apexes here. No doubt that they've got the muscle memory rhythm going as well, so it shouldn't be too hard because they've actually recorded quite a few laps to be able to get into that rhythm to know when and where to brake and when and where to turn. So it's when he's going to come home second best, and he's got a 12-second gap ahead of Hooked XR8 in P3 here. We've got Short Fuse in P4. He's got a 7-second gap now over Andy Holden in P5, so these gaps are starting to extend out here due to these very difficult conditions here at Mugello. So currently we've got John Dog in pit lane. I'm not sure what's happened to him. Maybe coming in for damage repairs. We'll wait and see, as he's been parked up for quite a while here. We've got our race leader coming out the last corner now to enter lap 28 here. So we've got just under 3 laps to go here at Mugello. So this time's starting to get faster now for Waffles and Bits. Maybe a little bit of grip on track now, considering the conditions slightly dying down a little bit. There's going to be a little bit of a distinguished race line there. We've still got rain pour over the track. You see a massive puddle on the inside curb there. You wouldn't want to go there, because that will completely rotate the rear end of the car. You're pretty much a passenger in that situation, because you'll also end up into the inside wall. So it's very critical that you're situationally aware here in these conditions as well. We'll try and look out for those very unhealthy puddles here for the tyres. Completely lose grip, front end grip to the track. Still attacking these inside curves, our reigning champ, with quite a fine amount of confidence, we could say. So race leader is only a few corners away from Wimpinator, who's almost a lap down. So we've only got 2 drivers on the lead lap here at Mugello. That's Waffles and Wimpinator. I think XR8, he's still on the lead lap, only just. We've got Short Fuse holding off Andy Holden in P5. So these guys might have a little bit of a battle on their hands in closing laps. They've got just over 2 laps to go here. As our race leader comes out of the final corner now to enter the penultimate lap for him. So he's currently got a decent lead in hand, 1 minute and 2 seconds at the top there. So as for Andy Holden, he'll take you for a lap here. See how far he can track. We'll go back to Andy Holden. We'll get cockpit view up. He's got a little bit of front windscreen damage there. So how deep does he go on the brakes here? Very deep, we should say. He's missed his second apex through turn 1. But really acceptable considering the conditions. So pretty much just nursing the car home here, Andy Holden. So his last lap was a 1:43.3. It's a little bit under 2 seconds quicker than Short Fuse last time around. So if he puts up another lap like that, we might see a battle heat up for P4 on the closing lap here at Mugello. See those 2 guys up ahead. So a little bit of lap traffic to contend with here. You see Short Fuse right ahead of him, just 1 second ahead. There's going to be lap traffic to deal with in this last sector here. I'm not sure who the lap traffic is. It's just going to send it down the inside. And then Andy Holden on the outside lane there. Going to get past with relative ease. So Waffles about to get onto the last lap here. What's happened to him? You know, he's actually made a mistake because he's only 43 seconds ahead of Wimpinator. So something's happened to the race leader. But fortunately enough, he's got a huge lead. He's coming out of the last corner now, heading down the main straight. So this is going to be the last lap for him. Assuming he doesn't stuff up badly, he's going to come home with a very commanding victory here at Mugello. So this is going to be the final lap for him. So we'll just stay on board with our race leader for the closing lap here. That message to you, Voodoo. Very unfortunate, mate. Terminal damage, big mistake, 100% engine damage, so completely screwed. Not able to get that car back to pit lane due to that, so not very good scenes for you for sure, Voodoo. So hopefully you have a better time around in round 2 here next week. So as for the race leader, Waffles and Bits, he's coming out of the last corner in a few moments' time, and he's going to come home with a very comfortable victory for round 1 of Bush League Racing's Group C, Sauber C9 Mercedes-Benz Series. It's out of the last corner now. We've got Wimpinator into pit lane for some odd reason. So he's completely binned it in pit lane now. I'm not sure what's happened, but Waffles and Bits comes home as your race winner. You got Hooked XR8 coming home in P2. You've got Andy Holden in P3 there. And Wimpinator coming out of the pit lane in P4. We got Short Fuse coming home in P5. Angry Old Fella in P6. John Dog in P7. Sparky God, is he actually still floating? I'm curious to know if he still is. I actually can't see what's going on here, but he'll come home in P8. We've got Aussie Chopper coming home in P9. So we're just waiting on Andy Holden and Hooked XR8 to come across the line. And lap traffic of Aussie and P9 there. So those guys set up in the last sector now. So they'll be home in a few moments' time. So Aussie Chopper is going to be looking for a comeback performance in round 2 after a disastrous round 1. So we're going on board with Andy Holden. This is the battle for P2 as we go through the final 2 corners, but Andy Holden's completely rotated it before the last corner, unfortunately. So he's just going to have to come home third best here as Hooked XR8 comes out the last corner now. So he's going to come home in P2 there. Try and get the chase view. There's no visibility there. So Andy Holden, the last of the drivers to cross the line. And those will be your unofficial results for round 1 of Bush League Racing's Group C, Sauber C9 Mercedes-Benz Series. Comfortable victory for Waffles and Bits. And you got Hooked XR8 and P2, Andy Holden rounding out the podium finishes there. And we got our reigning champ coming home in P4. Short Fuse in P5. Angry Old Fella P6. John Dog in P7. Sparky God in P8. Aussie Chopper in P9. And we got Voodoo rounding out the 10-car grid there. And unfortunately, terminal damage for him meant he had to retire from the race on lap 13 there. So that has been the round 1 installment for Bush League Racing. We'll see you same time next week, Monday night, 8 o'clock p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. But for now, in between then, we got plenty of broadcast during the week. The next coming up on Wednesday night for Go To Woes Mercedes-Benz Group A Series.